To be with us. Hope you're staying warm. My name is Megan Bryson. I am the director of the Academic Advising and Student Achievement Center. And with me is my colleague, Jessica. I'll let her introduce herself.
Good morning, y'all. My name is Jessica Larson. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Associate Director in the Academic Advising and Student Achievement Center. It's great to have you here.
Okay, well, we are going to go ahead and get started. Jessica's going to pull up the slide deck for us, and I'm going to kick off the presentation and then hand it to Jessica. And unfortunately, I need to be in two places at once this morning, so she's going to wrap up our presentation. And then our emails are on our last slide. So if you have any questions specifically related to advising, please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us afterwards. So welcome. This photo is from our most recent commencement. So love to see some smiling faces of some very proud Western graduates. Jessica, you want to go hop to the next slide there? These are some topics that we are going to cover. We could talk for a long time about advising at Western, and know that this is just a bit of some things that we think are really important for you all. We see this really as a partnership of you all working with students in this transition to Western. So we'll talk a bit about advising at Western, the major declaration process, which does require some early planning for so many majors. So want to really spend some time there. Talking about those high credit students, there's a lot of crossover there with the declaration piece. We'll cover some, not all, but some things around supporting the transfer student experience and just some things to be aware of. We want to point out DTA versus the AST for STEM. This is something that I feel like every time I get to talk with this group, we talk about, but boy, how important major readiness is and having that AST. So Jessica's going to kind of give a side-by-side example of what that can look like for the student experience. And then last but not least, we're going to touch on some advising and campus resources. We know the slide deck will be shared with you all, and the PowerPoint is full of lots of links. So you'll be able to take a look at that later. Go ahead, Jessica. Okay, we're going to start first with our center. So the Academic Advising and Student Achievement Center, we've been around for about a year and a half. This is a center that brought together two offices that have historically advised students, the Academic Advising Center and Student Outreach Services. Our offices were right next door to each other. We did a massive construction project and came together to join, kind of brought together the best elements of the work that we do in supporting students. So our advising scope is really, we are responsible for the new student advising experience, which I'll talk about here shortly. Also we cover GURs. So working with students, understanding what GUR credit they may have coming in, what they may have remaining, checking in with students who are close to a DTA but not. We might talk about reverse transfer or other things, sending those final transcripts. Exploring and changing majors, we work with students there. Academic standing, so students who find themselves not, they didn't do as well in that first quarter or beyond, and helping them understand what their academic standing is. And we do a lot of GPA calculation with students to help them determine what they need to do to bring back their GPA into good academic standing. We work with students a lot on understanding their helping other things to support their academic success. So connecting with campus resources, research writing studio, the tutoring center, disability access services. So our team really makes sure that we are aware of what those campus resources are and have dedicated time to make sure that we're keeping up with those on campus to make sure students know where to go. We realize Western is bigger than the institution that a student may have attended. And although the resources are very similar, there's a lot more. And so we can help students navigate those. On the right side of the screen here, we can see some targeted outreach that our office does. We actually assign our team as advisors for all new first generation college students and students who are entering Western with a lower transfer in GPA or a lower high school GPA. And that is something that we assign ourselves to them their whole first year at Western. Jean mentioned a bit ago, some reverse transfer advising. Our office reaches out to students just after their first quarter at Western who may qualify for the reverse transfer policy. It's a bit of a complicated one because there's some transferring back and forth. And so we want to make sure that we're supporting students in that process. Undeclared students, we do a lot of work every quarter connecting with undeclared students, starting even this year at the sophomore level, credit level. If students get to 105 credits and they are undeclared in a major, we place a hold. It is not a punitive hold. I tell students it's really a way to say, you've got a lot of credit. Good job. Let's make sure that you are on track and getting into a major. And then we support those students every quarter by that 105 hold process until they get declared. Um, Students who come in with 105 credits or more, we don't place a hold in their first quarter. We give them a pass, but still do that outreach to make sure they know we're here to support them in the process. And then low academic standing, we reach out to students in partnership with the registrar's office. Any student who's in low academic standing, in addition to students who've been academically dismissed, we're responsible for that process. So we really work to support those students in that academic area to hopefully get back into good standing. Okay, Jessica, we can go to the next one. I mentioned new student advising, so we're going to kind of go back a little bit. Student transfers to Western or enters Western, and the first experience that they're going to have with us is during their advising and registration session. Um, it During the pandemic, we pivoted that program to be fully virtual. Students do not have to be in Bellingham or on our campus to receive advising, and we have chosen to maintain this virtual experience from an access standpoint. And it's mandatory for first years, optional for transfers. We've actually seen an increase in attendees of transfers because it's a virtual experience. Students will have a small group experience in the morning with a presentation that has engaging kind of built-in activities to help them build their schedule options, and then individual one-on-one 30-minute appointments in the afternoon where they meet with an advisor back in Zoom to chat about schedule options and get them registered for their first term. Not a new thing, but something we've had for many years is a Canvas course. So once a student confirms with admissions to attend, we enroll them in an early, it's called the Virtual Advisor Canvas course, just to start to get them thinking and planning. Some of you may be familiar with New Student Services Family Outreach. They have recently changed their name to the Office of Orientation and Transition. And so their office has both reservation system for us with the advising and registration sessions, but also a really nicely laid out orientation checklist for students. We know that there's a lot of things that need to happen in order to get a student to a new institution. And so it's really well organized and times it for students in terms of what they need to be doing before they get here, kind of right as they're getting here and even into their first year. The one thing that I do want to reinforce, and we're going to talk about more, especially as some of the content that Jessica gets into, is the need to plan for a major. So, especially for students who are earning, let's say, a DTA, they're done with their general university requirements. That's awesome. And they really need to be thinking about what am I going to be taking when I come to Western. So doing that early planning with academic department advisors, they are all used to talking with students. And many academic departments even have sections on their websites for prospective students. So before they get to Western, what they can be doing to prepare. All right, Jessica, we'll take you to the next one. Speaking of academic department advising, they are experts. So one big transition, especially for students coming from that 2-year college experience, and even if they're transfer or running start, is you might have different advisors depending on what you're looking for. So a student might start with us as they're figuring out their major. And when it comes to advising for a major or a minor, we have advisors specifically within each academic area. When Lisa introduced herself, she said she was at Western for 10 years prior in the engineering department. So we worked really closely with Lisa, excuse me, as that engineering advisor, helping students get into that major. So our office helps students navigate to find who is that best person they need to connect with to make sure I'm getting that specific advising for the major. Once a student is declared in a major, they'll also get typically a faculty advisor assigned to them on declaration. The next slide, Jessica. Great. So I mentioned students may have other advisors as well. Here's a great example. Some students want to go on and study pre-professional graduate programs in the healthcare field. We have an advisor in our Career Services Center dedicated toward helping students make sure that they are meeting the academic requirements for going on to something like dental school or medical school. Her name is Erica, and so this link here takes you to that site. We have a lot of students who want to go on and study abroad. We actually have a whole center, education abroad office, where there's advisors that help students plan for those education abroad experiences. And then our lovely partners in our Career Services Center offer both career and graduate school advising. So we have a team of career counselors who help students explore other graduate school options along the way. And then the link that's called out here in the dark blue box is um, a newer resource that we've created for that's based on topics, so students can click on it and then it will tell them where they go for best advising. And when in doubt, you can call our office. Okay, Jessica, I think this is my last slide here. So let's talk a little bit about declaring a major timeline. And the reason why we want to kind of start to dig into this a little bit is because of that importance of pre-planning for students. So this visual provides, so students entering Western, this is assuming they're entering with 0 credits. So I think that's something to think about is if a student's coming in with a substantial amount of credits, it pushes that fast forward button on their planning. So really, we want to see students who are at that 60 credit mark to be having a really solid idea of what they want to major in. If it's a student who maybe is a STEM major or something that requires particular application timeline, knowing that sooner is a better approach. Students can always change their mind, but we want to make sure that if there's any kind of sequenced planning that's required for a major, that is factored into the process. At this point, I'm going to transition over to Jessica. She's going to dig a bit more into major declaration and process. Thanks, Jessica.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, y'all. I am taking over and I'm going to share some resources with you all, which can help that planning that Megan was sharing. And it sounds like you all are going to get the slide deck, so you'll have access to all of these. But if you click on this first link, it gives you an overview of all of the majors that Western offers, and you can filter by interest, by different campuses, by undergraduate or graduate. So just a really great exploration tool for students who are wanting to learn more about what majors Western offers. And if you click on any of these, I was an anthropology major, so I always use anthropology as an example. It gives you a really great overview of the options at Western and then links to keep on exploring. And if I go back to the presentation, there's also the Programs of Study webpage, which is something that when I worked as a community college advisor at Whatcom, I used all the time. And now that I'm at Western, I continue to use it all the time. So I really encourage you all to take advantage of this and show your students this, use this yourself. But this is basically a roadmap to all of our different majors. So the Programs of Study page is organized by college, and then within the different colleges, alphabetical by major. So the College of Business and Economics, for example, then the College of the Environment, and so on. And we're going to look at this a little bit closer in the next slide. We're going to look at a couple of examples, but this is public information available to everybody. You don't need any kind of a login or anything. And then academic department websites will give you even more details and also give you information about contact information, faculty. Sometimes students might want to look and see like what are the academic backgrounds or academic research interests of faculty. And this is a really great option to do that. So again, if we look at the anthropology department, we'll give you just a taste of what the department is like and their offerings, and also maybe clubs or extracurriculars. So just really useful resource. Go into the next slide. Speaking of majors, and Megan touched on this briefly, but majors really vary in terms of what's needed to declare and the timeline. Some majors, you literally just fill out a form and you're in it. Other majors might require a portfolio or a certain set of classes that you need to complete before you apply. So it really depends on the specific program. So while you're supporting students through this pre-planning, we really encourage you and your students to be thinking about what are the deadlines for the major that I'm interested in? Are there any prerequisite classes that are required, especially for the STEM majors, especially for business majors? A lot of those prerequisite or foundation classes might be sequenced, so you have to take, pre-calculus before you can take calculus and so on. So being able to build that into your planning is really helpful. And also knowing, is there a minimum GPA that's required to apply? Is there an average GPA of admitted students? Some departments have that information on their websites. And again, are there additional requirements like a portfolio or an audition? You can find this information in the program of study that we're going to take a look at, also in the departmental websites. And also, I wanted to show you this part of our catalog that shows you what's new for this academic year, and this gets updated every year. So this just shows you like new programs that Western has been rolling out, new ethnic studies department, some changes in curriculum. So that's just a really helpful link for you all to check out. Okay. Oops, going back. And it sounds like Jean is going to be providing a document that has a little bit more information about contact information for the different departments. And I think Jean's going to be sharing that digitally with y'all. Okay, so I wanted to share an example of what the program of study details look like when you're navigating this with students. So we're going to look at computer science and English because those are two really popular majors at Western. So when you click on this link, this opens up to the computer science program of study. And I'm going to show you some of the things that I encourage students to be aware of when you're looking through this, because it is a lot of information. Helpful information, but it's a lot of information. So the layout is always going to be the same. It'll show you how many credits the major is, give you an introduction to the major, why you should consider, why a student might consider majoring in it. And then one of the most helpful pieces of information I found working at the community college advising level was contact information. So this shows you who to contact with questions about the program and gives you their contact info, including phone number and email. So this is something I really encourage you and your students to take a look at. Also, something that I found helpful was sample careers. So if a student studies this major, these are some possible careers that they might lead to. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. And then one of the other most helpful parts of the programs of study is the how to declare. So this is really, and I said this earlier, but this is really a student's roadmap to navigating this process and how to hopefully get into the major. So like I said, every major is a little bit different. There's no one size fits all how to declare a major at Western. So for computer science, it shows you that it's broken down into a two-phase process, and it does give you the requirements for each phase. So again, while students are doing their pre-planning and thinking about while they're at the community college, what classes they might want to be incorporating into their associate degree requirements, this can be super useful. So this shows the pre-major process, the phase one process, and then applying to the full major. And then if you scroll down, this is something I also find helpful when working with students. It just gives you a list of all the different requirements for the major, which again can really support exploration when students are trying to decide, is this a good fit? But also that planning piece, trying to prepare academically for their major while they're at the community college. And just to contrast, so that was computer science. And then English looks really similar. Like I said, same layout, still gives you the number of credits, gives you an introduction, why a student might want to consider majoring in English literature. And then it also gives you contact information again. So L star is a contact info, sample careers again, and again, a roadmap to how to declare this major. And as you can see, the English process is totally different. They basically just need to schedule an appointment with L, and then the prereq is 60 credits and then completion of English 202. So these are just examples, contrasting examples of how different the process for applying and hopefully declaring a major can be at Western. And again, same with computer science. If you scroll down, you'll see a list of all of the different requirements. So Megan and I wanted to share this with you because it's something we use daily with students in our office, and I'm hoping that you'll also find it helpful in your work with your students as well. So speaking of preparing for your major, and I know that Megan touched on this, we wanted to talk about advising high credit students and really just how crucial planning for the major is for these students. And whether this is a student who is running START, completing their associate's degree, and then coming into Western, or if this is a student who already graduated high school and earning their transfer degree and then coming to Western, major planning is really crucial for both groups of students. Because as Megan shared, a student coming in with high credits or with an associate's degree is likely could be coming in with junior class standing, and all or many of their GURs might be done. And so we're hoping that by doing some of that prior planning and hopefully taking some of that academic preparation while at community college will make a much smoother transition once a student is here. And we know there's a variety of associate degrees at the community college, including MRPs, straight up DTAs, ASTs. And my advice is, working with students is pick your end goal. What do you want to major in? And then what associate's degree is going to give you the best academic preparation for that major. So DTAs can be a really great option for non-STEM majors. I also know there's DTA MRPs for like business, biology, other options. And the associate in science transfer is really ideal for STEM. So you also might see biology students doing that, or engineering, chemistry, environmental science, that kind of thing, because the major preparation is built into those degrees. So I'm going to come back to this slide, but since we're talking about major preparation, I'm going to jump to this slide. And we just thought it would be helpful to give you an example of what it looks like on the student ends of things once they transfer to Western, and about the academic major preparation and what the impact of that is. So in this hypothetical example situation, we have two example students who are both interested in computer science. And one student earned the DTA with no academic preparation, no major prep for computer science. The other student earned an AST with preparation for computer science. And again, I know that associate degree options for students interested in computer science are varied across community college. This is just one example. So the student with the DTA is probably looking at least a year of major preparation before they can apply to their major. And in this example, the student took Math 107, which does not lead to higher level math like pre-calculus or calculus, and that level of math is required for computer science. So this student is likely going to need to take our math placement assessment. And then in this example, they were starting at the algebra level. So as you can see, fall, winter, spring, fall, they're working through algebra, pre-calc 1, pre-calc 2, and then into calculus. And also they can't touch their introductory programming until they get through algebra, and can't start their science sequence until they get through pre-calc 1. So the students coming in with 90 credits with their GURs completed, and at the junior levels when we are hoping students are beginning to work into their major, and unfortunately the student is looking at least a year out, and that can be a really frustrating experience for students. The student might be able to declare the pre-major in their first year, but will need to continue to work on those prerequisite classes before they're able to apply. To contrast this, if a student who transfers with their AST with preparation for computer science, their timeline looks a lot different. So in this example, the student had already done their science sequence, already done some introductory programming, already done math, maybe through Calc 1, Calc 2. And so they might be able to declare or apply to the major after their first or second quarter. So the timeline to graduation for both examples are really different. So I just think this is another example of how crucial a major preparation is. When I worked at Wacom, I used to describe it to students as think about your bachelor's degree starting at the community college, especially for students who are going to transfer with a large amount of credits or an associate's degree. They're different degrees, different institutions, a bachelor's degree and an associate's degree, but the hope is that they are working together and complementing each other. So using your associate degree requirements to hopefully also prepare you for your major will just really make that transition much smoother for students. So I'm going to go back to the slide that I missed. Um, we just wanted to share a little bit, a slice from our perspective of supporting the transfer student experience. And one of the first things I'd share is that it's a transition. Students might be adjusting to a new location if they're moving to Bellingham. Students are getting used to a new campus, a new environment. a new bureaucracy to navigate. Also, if students, this is their first time taking upper division classes, they might also be adjusting to new academic requirements. So it's a transition, and we really try and normalize that for students. And there's this thing called transfer shock that some students experience, some don't, where during this transition, you might see a slight dip in your grades, but usually GPAs recover after that. So just trying to really normalize that for students, that it's a big transition and that might impact different areas of your academic life, and that's okay. And there's lots of support as students work through that transition. Megan already touched on this, but students may have more than one academic advisor while they're at Western. They might be working with us initially and then with their departmental advisor. And then, of course, if they're interested in like a healthcare career or law, working with advisors who specialize in those areas. I know I'm singing to the choir, as Jean shared, but being prepared for their major as early as possible really benefits students and hopefully keeps them on a timely path towards graduation. Another thing that might be different is most of our classes are daytime in person. So we do have some online offerings, but they're pretty limited. So that's an important thing for students to know. And I know Megan also shared this, but our campus resources are generally pretty similar. So the resources that a student's used to accessing on your campuses, they can likely access on ours. And we might also have resources that they have not yet experienced, like a student health center, outdoor center, university police, things like that. Um, and finally, there's just a lot of opportunities at Western to engage, to build community, to get involved. And I'm going to show you a couple resources to check out those options in a later slide. Um, so I wanted to share three websites with you all that, again, are open to the public. You don't need a login or anything like that, that you might find helpful. So My Western has helpful announcements like our snow delay. But it also has a bunch of resources just grouped together, like helpful advising videos that anybody can access, the programs of study that we were just looking at in that example of computer science versus English, registration schedule, placement, test information, class finder. So all sorts of really helpful information, and anybody can access this. Same thing for our website. We have tons of resources, student resources, basic needs, information about academic planning. And again, all of this is totally open to the public. And then finally, browse classes, which you can access from My Western if students are curious, or if you are curious to see what are the course offering at Western, what are the times classes are offered, what are the course descriptions. Sometimes that's kind of fun to look at. And I know I'm running short on time, so I'm going to try and wrap this up. Um, I just wanted to highlight a few campus resources and activities that you might find interesting. I know Megan talked about the new student orientation checklist, but it's so useful. So as soon as a student confirms admission, they're going to be getting steps on what to do next to get them ready to start at Western. And that orientation checklist is really useful. And that's also something that's available on Western's websites. So you can take a look at that as well if you want. There's also, other campus resources. Like I mentioned, Western typically has everything that a student might be used to accessing at your institution and a little bit more. So this is just an easy website if you want to take a peek at an overview of what we offer. We have a really wonderful, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. We have a really wonderful Centers for Student Access Community and Intercultural Engagement that supports students of various identities. So lots of different ways to get engaged and support and build community. And then finally, the Western Involvement Network is a really great website to see what is going on campus on any day. So what kind of events are happening, concerts, lectures, club activities. And again, all of this is easily accessible to everybody. All right. And then finally, I wanted to share that we are a First Gen Forward Network member. And we've been recognized for our support of first generation students, and Western defines first generation students as students whose neither parent has earned a bachelor's degree. So this is something we're really proud of, and we really try and center our work around when we're working with students. And you're welcome to take a look at these websites when Jean sends you these links. And I just wanted to echo what Megan said at the beginning, is that we truly view this as a partnership. I deeply value and appreciate the work that you do with students. Supporting transfer students is something I feel really passionately about and love that part of my job, both at the community college level and here at Western. And so, if we can help get you connected with a resource, or if you're not sure who to contact, if you're interested, if you're working with a student and interested in X, Y, or Z major, please reach out because your current students might be our future students. And we really, as a partnership, because we're all working towards the same goal, helping students meet their academic goals. And with that, I think I am transferring it over to John Krieg. Is that right, Jean? Our Director of Institutional Effectiveness?
Yeah, can we have a question though that I
Oh,
think
great.
maybe you might be a good one to answer. It's in the Q&A. I can
Okay.
also read it out loud, Jessica. Is the DTA, can you see that? Do you want me to read
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So the question is the DTA the AA DTA? Um, my understanding is yes, the Associate in Arts and Sciences Direct Transfer Agreement. It looks like North Seattle College also has an ASDTA. I know that AST1 and AST2 are separate from the DTA, but Jean, maybe you can answer
Yeah.
the AS-DTA.
If it's a DTA, and especially if it's listed in the ICRC handbook, it's fine. And yes, we know North that you're special with your ASDTA, and as long as it's a DTA, it will fulfill the GURs and students come in with junior standing.
Thank you all. It was so nice to see you. Thanks for having me. I will get out of your webinar. Enjoy the